up, everybody? How you doing today? Hey, listen, I wasn't going to do a video today, but I changed my mind. I actually found this podcast that Steve Fambro was on, and he was on it last week, February the 28th of this year. And so I'm going to go ahead and let y'all listen to that. I'm going to do this in two parts because it's so long, but the second part you really want to listen to. So let's get into it. Okay, welcome back, everybody. Got a podcast here that Steve Frambo was on. He was on it last week. I think you'll find this very interesting, especially the end of it. So we're going to go ahead and listen to that.
Well, thank you so much, Steve, for joining me today. I'm very excited to, walk through Aptera, its sort of mission and vision, and sort of what the journey's been like so far. To basically, kind of be in an inventive space, being one of the first of a few now, but probably many to come in solar EV vehicles, and we'll get into what that exactly means here in a second. But talk about a little bit about your journey, a little bit about Aptera's journey. You and your co-founder kind of had the first idea and iteration, and then, kind of a decade later almost, here we are.
I guess the way I even determined I had the time to do this and the ability was related to my job at the time. I was a late bloomer, so I didn't go to university until I was almost 30 years old. I went on the GI Bill and was very, mission focused to get through school. And once I got hired before I graduated. I mean, I still graduated, but I had a job offer that I accepted my senior year, and was at a biotech company here in San Diego called Illumina. And so my girlfriend and I at the time, she's also a double E in electrical engineering. That's how we met. We decided, and she's from San Diego, so we're like, oh, it makes sense. Let's head to San Diego after graduation. This job was like a dream job. I was one of, I think, one or two electrical engineers in the whole company. And I was junior. I'd worked as a technician for a long time, for maybe 10 years or so. So I knew how to repair equipment. I didn't know how to design. I wasn't an engineer. So I knew my way around the lab and how to fix things. What's like the PhD scientist would be like looking at an instrument, questioning the results or what's happening. I would walk around and see maybe it's just turned off, or like check the fuse, something like that. So this job was a dream job, and it kept me just fully engaged, every bit of my brain fully engaged in solving problems on how to make DNA, that's what these machines did that we designed. We were designing how to image the DNA, how to just all the lab automation and stuff. It was fantastic. And then we got to a point where we engineered ourselves out of a job, so to speak. The last machine that we built it was like thousands of times more efficient than the previous one. So it cost us virtually nothing to make DNA, which is a necessary part for when you're not doing genotyping, when you're doing SNP analysis or single nucleotide polymorphism. It's when they're looking for a targeted area of your genome. You need to produce the opposite DNA of what you think you're looking for, or the conjugate pair. So that's why we had to produce DNA for this whole process to work. We were able to then produce it thousands of times cheaper than anybody else in the market. So we crushed everybody in the marketplace. And the machine went on to run another 10 or 12 years after I left the company. The thing is, once that happened, then we just got kind of the engineering team broken up and parceled out to the company, and I got bored. And, if there's one thing from watching these like science horror films is you don't want the lab monkeys to get out of the cage, if they're bored, right?
Yeah.
And I was like the bored lab monkey. And so I started this other project, which was building, an electric vehicle. And I knew that I wanted to make it. I knew that it had to be efficient. I knew there had to be all these things because electric vehicles just really weren't possible at the time. I mean, people had converted them. They had lead acid cars. There's quite this hobbyist movement of converting.
What year was this around?
It's 2005.
Okay.
2004, 2005. So I started, building this thing in my garage, and I didn't have children at the time. So I would get up, I'd make, pots of coffee throughout the day, and I would just sit on the living room floor with my drawings all laid out on the computer, and just totally ignore, my wife and everybody. Thank God she's still here. But it was just, I really tweaked out, on this project. And at some point around 2005, mid 2005, I became so obsessed. I was like, I have to make this a business somehow. Like, surely other people want a vehicle, an efficient electric vehicle that goes really far, et cetera. So I have to figure out how to make this a business. And because I want to do this full time. So I wrote a business plan, and we did a press release. This is right around the time I met Chris, and the right person saw it, and we got it funded, and that's how we started the first time. So it was really being bored, but also being an engineer. That being an electrical engineer, so much of what you learn is you have to teach yourself, or you go to the professor just for questions, but you read the material yourself, you teach yourself, and they're very abstract things, or things you can't see. Waveforms, propagation of a wave from an antenna and stuff. So you have to be able to think abstractly and also connect the dots of things you don't fully understand. And that just gave me a toolbox that I was able to leverage on the job to help make these robots and make DNA. And then I thought I could learn everything I need to know about building an efficient electric vehicle just by reading books, because that's how I learned how to make DNA. It's how I got my engineering degree. And that was kind of the naive outlook that I had. It's like, we can teach ourselves enough to be dangerous. And that's how we proceeded.
And that was, pretty early on, like you said, in the EV movement, I guess we'll call it. And it might have been a little too early. Maybe the market wasn't ready quite yet. So walk us through the first go around, right? And then you guys kind of took a pause, and then really, as the market more matured, you kind of brought it back with full force. And then I want to get into exactly what Aptera is and how it works.
Yeah, we Chris and I, we raised about $40 million at the time, and we brought in these outside investors and a professional management team, kind of Detroit experienced people. And around 2008, 2009, he and I didn't see eye to eye with the management team. And so we left. He started a battery company, Flux Power, took it public a couple of years later. And I got into vertical farming and started a company to productionize, very high volume produced indoor grown vegetables, pesticide free, herbicide free, all year round. And that took me to the Middle East, where I helped manage an ag tech fund for one of the family offices there in Abu Dhabi. And Chris and I reconnected when my family moved back to the United States in 2017. And we thought, like you said early on, the ecosystem of suppliers just wasn't there. Like there wasn't even a connector to charge your vehicle, like a common connector yet. And so that's one of the reasons why Tesla had to become so vertically integrated, is because that ecosystem didn't exist. They had to create it. Well, now the ecosystem exists, and the market has validated the need for electric vehicles because, Tesla's grown into one of the most valuable companies in the world, and we see people moving more and more towards electric. So that's how we knew in 2019 that the market was ready, the customers would be there, and our analysis of the market showed us that range was the most important factor in not the only, but one of the most important factors in the consumer's choice of electric vehicle, which in part explained, Tesla's profound growth, because they had the longest range electric vehicles. There's other factors, price, performance, etc. But once we determined that range was that big factor, and with our analysis, we said, how do we, our platform lets us dominate the range equation, hands down. So this is the time to do it.
And when we talk about solar EVs versus EV, Tesla, now every car company is going toward EV production, full slate, right, for every car company in the world in a decade or two. What makes a solar car different than a traditional, let's say, Tesla or just general EV?
The idea, when we restarted the company, we noted that some of the fundamental technologies have radically improved, right? The batteries, the energy density of batteries, and also the efficiency of solar cells. And we thought, okay, that's great. What happens if we can cover the roof with these newer solar cells that are like 23% efficient? Oh, we get so many 100 watts. And now we use about 100 watt hours per mile. That's our energy consumption. So that's a fraction of like a Tesla Model 3 or a Nissan Leaf or Chevy Bolt or something. So Chris and I both were like just doing the math in our heads, and we kind of said to each other, looked at each other at the same time and said, why don't we cover the whole thing in solar cells? Because like that would be up to 30 or 40 miles per day that we could harvest, like just from having the cells covering the body. And there's something fortuitous that happened in doing that. So we had these cells, and we were trying to figure out how to bend them in two axes. We realized two things. If we rotate it, 45 degrees, then you can bend it sort of. Bend the diamond portion as opposed to like bending a diamond as opposed to bending a square. I don't know if that makes sense, but if you just rotate it slightly, because this is counterintuitive, because most people, you look at university solar projects or things like that, they pack all the rectangular cells together. And we had also wanted to avoid that aesthetic. I wanted to like subconsciously trigger something in people's minds that was elevated from that. And so the idea of rotating it 45 degrees also looks like a diamond, so it just connotes something different than having, if it were just rectangular cells. It's hard to maybe imagine in your head, but if you look at the vehicle now, just imagine instead of them looking like diamonds, if you were to rotate it, they look like squares. It'd be kind of awkward looking. Once we realized that we could pack that many on the vehicle and have it become an integral design element, then we said, 30 or 40 miles a day is really meaningful. That's more than most people drive. And it'd almost be a crime not to put them on the vehicle if that was within reach of this ultra efficient platform. And that's when we just committed to say, look, there are going to be other EVs out there. There's going to be companies that make hybrids or performance EVs. We fundamentally are always going to develop the lowest energy use platform so that we can have meaningful, remarkable solar EVs. Because we think that's the way to spread EVs, is to not be constrained by the plug, not be constrained by the grid, and to be able to offset that energy production. Maybe it's 11,000 miles a year, maybe it's only 5,000 or 6,000 in some areas, but to take a meaningful chunk out of energy production and distribution to put electric vehicles on the road, that's the power of solar EVs. And we want to own that space. We want to own the IP to create the cells, to sandwich them, to make them last for 15 years in a vehicle, the power electronics necessary to boost it to 400 volts, all that stuff. So that's how it became a solar electric vehicle company.
And not being constrained to the plug is sort of huge, and that's a big differentiator at the moment. When we look at the battery, and like you said before, maybe a lot of the components in the supply chain weren't quite there, a decade or so ago. Now when we look at batteries, is it the same battery in the solar EV as it would be in a sort of a traditional EV? The only difference is maybe the size, but the energy is stored similar as it would if you get energy from a plug versus the sun. Is sort of the same thing happening there?
That's right. The way to think about it, think about the solar, like when we think about a hybrid, like a Prius or something, there's a gasoline engine and a fuel tank, and that provides some boost charge to the battery. But it's primarily, I guess, a gas car with electric boost. So that's probably not a good example. But think about it like an electric vehicle with a small trickle charger with like an infinitely long extension cord. That's kind of the way to think about it. It's just always putting this trickle charge of up to 4 kilowatt hours per day into the vehicle, whether you're driving or parked or whatever, as long as the vehicle will accept the charge. It could be fully charged, in which case we'll do creative things. We'll like turn on the air conditioning. We'll try and use that energy that's being produced for good, as opposed to just not convert it. The battery functions the exact same way. The only real difference between Aptera and other EVs is that to go the same distance, our batteries are a fraction of the size. And that's why we're able to produce vehicles that cost less, because we need such fewer cells than the competition.
I want to talk about the design for a little bit, because when you see it, you're taken aback because it's so different. When I was reading, I guess it's sort of in this shape I don't know shape, but like in sort of a parallel to a dolphin sort of body shape in some way. But I guess talk about the design process and what goes into something like that, because it takes into account, like you said, lighter battery, might mean, longer distance, right? Because the battery's lighter, but also using different materials, doors, all these things.
Going back, when we started, there's a common exercise in mathematics or in engineering, like when you're exploring a new concept or you're trying to, find out what are the main drivers of an equation or something. You'll set different variables to zero or set them to infinity and kind of see where the equation blows up. And so, you might discover, well, these variables here don't really change the outcome that much, but this one really changes the outcome. And when I discovered that most vehicles, most cars use half of the energy just to push the air out of the way at highway speeds because of the drag coefficient, or the drag product rather, that's the drag coefficient multiplied by the frontal area of the vehicle. I sort of asked myself I did this thought exercise. Okay, well, I can't change the frontal area because we want two people sitting side by side. We're not going to seat tandem because nobody will ever buy a vehicle like that because it's too extreme. It's like I would choose it because I'm, a nerdy kind of guy, but most people want to sit side by side, right, with whoever they're riding with. So I can't change the frontal area. But what if I made the drag coefficient go to zero? Like, surely there must be a shape that's, mathematically describable, continually differentiable, that the drag goes to zero. And that's what set us off studying, all the different efficient sort of university hypermile cars, the solar racing cars, the Shell Eco Marathon Challenge cars. They had teardrop, they had camber bodies, they have all kinds of different design. And we sort of stumbled into some forms that were good for packaging a large frontal area. And that cambered body has a unique property, like you said, a dolphin or shark or other fish that swim near the bottom of the ocean. When they swim near the bottom of the ocean, they kind of make their bottom flat and their top rounded, almost like a wing a little bit, so that near the ocean floor, they have very low drag. And that's called ground effect. And once I realized that, Aptera, like any road vehicle, it's in ground effect, the aerodynamics for the free stream, like how you make a low drag airplane or any low drag shape that went through the air, those aerodynamics in the free stream are radically different than what's needed in ground effect. And that's what sent us down this path of discovery to the cambered shape, and is what, contributes to its very low drag. So it looks like that because math tells us, the least drag way to make that shape. And it's been further optimized, by AI and sort of the iterative AI process to help us nip and tuck here and there to lower the drag even more. But that's really the genesis of the shape.
When we talk about where Aptera is now, it seems like we're pretty close to seeing these vehicles on.
Okay, so we're going to stop right there. But he brought out some very interesting points. You want to keep learning, you want to keep studying, keep taking in knowledge, especially you young ones. If you're out of high school, if you have an idea, make sure you continue to pursue that idea and come out with it, become a young entrepreneur. And there's no telling how far you may go. That's what him and Chris did, and you can see where they're at now. But they're still continuing to reach out to entrepreneurs so that they could get finance and get this taken care of. But you really want to take note of part 2. And he said that when he came out with Fambro, that actually took him to the Middle East. Now we're going to talk about that again in part 2 when I come out with it. And so now what we're going to do is we're going to look at the website and see what's happening on the accelerator program. Because yesterday when I looked at it, there was a big jump. There's almost there's 28 people that had signed up. So we're going to see what's happening on the accelerator program today and see if it hasn't jumped again. Because I know that pretty soon there's going to be so many people getting on here that it's going to start growing pretty substantially. What we got 503 investors now. Man, that's a big jump from yesterday, because it was at 495, and now it's at 503. So that is a pretty good jump. $7.36 million. All right, awesome. Way to go, everybody. Yep, way to go. And RP is still number 1. He's going to get the number 1 vehicle. That's awesome. That is awesome. So if you want to invest in Aptera, I'm not a financial advisor, but this is the website you want to come to. If you got $10,000 you want to invest with, you could do that. Or you can go to, if you don't want to invest as much, you can go to the other website, and let's see where that's at. That is at, okay, there's over 1,000 investors there, and they're at 1,200,000 $1,000 on there. So yeah, see, all you have to do is invest $110 and you can become a part of Aptera's family. Yes, yes, indeed. Aptera is on a roll. They're rocking. And let me tell you that if you're new to this channel, go ahead and subscribe, hit the like, ring the bell, and we will go ahead give you all the new videos that I come out with, and you'll be up to date. So now I want to give a shout out to all my patrons. All right, you guys are awesome. You make this channel work. I appreciate all that you do. And if you're new here, please hit the like, ring the bell, and subscribe. When you subscribe, you keep this channel going, and I'm going to try to come out with all the new updates on Aptera that I can find. And you guys, y'all take care. Y'all keep supporting my channel, and we're going to keep this baby rolling. And when Aptera comes out, oh yes, we are really going to be rocking then. We can't wait for Aptera to come out, rock and roll. Yes. So y'all keep it up, and I'll keep it up. All right, you take care. Y'all have a good one. We'll talk to you later. Bye.